Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and welcome to our program today. So, if this is your first time joining us on this podcast, you will realize that what we like to do is we like to take an individual horror film, me and my special guest, and we like to discuss, critique, analyze, and kind of delve deep into that single horror film. Now, that is part of our format because we don't want to be talking about a whole bunch of random shit as we're talking about this single film. But as we have a conversation about this film, we do tend to go off on little tangents here and there. So we just want you to stick with us and we'll bring it back to the movie at hand. So that being said, we might go on a few tangents during this episode because right now we are delving deep into franchises and horror franchises and movies such as that. And the franchise we're doing today, and I hope that you've seen some of our previous episodes on the other franchise episodes, for this franchise, is the Cloverfield franchise. The film we're going to be discussing in this episode is the Cloverfield Paradox. And to discuss the movie with me today is Philip Ray. Thank you, Philip, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And as you will know, this is an unusual franchise in that there are three films in the franchise, and each one of the films are particularly different from each of the other ones, and none of them actually go from one to the next to the next. So it'll be interesting to have this conversation with you, Philip, in regards to the movie, which we've already discussed a little bit beforehand because I know a little bit about your feelings about this film. So let's first start off on that. What are some of your thoughts and feelings about the Cloverfield Paradox?
Yeah, so little background context. Cloverfield is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Cloverfield. It was one of my favorite movies. And then 10 Cloverfield Lane is another movie that I very much enjoy. So I had a lot of, every time I was like, oh, we've got a new Cloverfield, I was excited. So when Cloverfield Paradox was announced in a very interesting way, freaking announced during the Super Bowl, which caught everyone by surprise. And the fact that it was getting released on Netflix was definitely a surprise. Now, I followed a little behind the scenes, so I knew its original title of God Particle. So when I heard about it and heard a little bit of the premise, I was like, oh, this sounds really exciting. Because at the time so far, the Cloverfield movies have been really not connected, other than names and maybe some small little bit of references. So I was so excited about watching the third entry and how it was going to be, and I hated it. I was extremely disappointed in this movie, and we'll talk more throughout it. But my biggest issue with this movie is I think the movie, if if it took away some of the Cloverfield references, I think this would have been a better received movie. It wouldn't be a great movie. I mean, there's a reason why they released it on Netflix because this movie definitely was going to bomb in the box office, regardless if they had a normal theatrical release, because this was not a good movie. This was an okay movie in general, but I think a lot of reason why this movie is so hated is the same reason I did not like it, which was it was the movie, which we'll talk more about it, which was intentionally altered to include more references and stuff. This movie felt like when you're watching a movie, a mystery movie, you're trying to guess, like, oh, what about this? What about that? And then this movie goes, well, don't worry, I got all the answers here, 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 here. Every answer you've ever wanted, go here. Here you go. Here's all the answers. Here's the test results. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I did not want all these right now. Also, why? So. And I thought it was done so, and that's why a lot of people hate this movie, because a lot of it was just the explanations for everything was so boring, and so again, it goes into my ongoing, this is a theme, I will say in almost every episode I'm on now, is less is more. It's better to imagine what's going on, and that's what's been the beauty of the last two movies is you don't know what's going on. So the fact this movie felt like, okay, here's all the answers, it's like, no, please don't do that. I don't want to know these answers, especially because a lot of them are kind of just boring now that we know what they are. So that's my piece for
See
now.
that, and for everyone listening to the show, I actually enjoyed this movie on a different level than he did. Obviously, my only big gripe about the movie itself is that there was no, and this is part of the ideal behind the film is the scientists who are tasked with going up into space to test out a particle accelerator that will eventually give new energy or endless energy for the earth because it's having an energy crisis. That is essentially the gist of the film. It is too dangerous of a device to actually trigger on Earth because of the so-called Cloverfield paradox, which they do explain. I forgot they actually explained it in there. I've seen this movie 3-4 times now, and I forgot. I always forget that they actually explain what the Cloverfield paradox is, which is shit. I had it word for word what they said. Do you have it?
I mean, basically, it is the Cloverfield paradox is the idea of the accelerator opening multiple portals to parallel universes that could bleed into our universe.
Well,
And
part of that, yeah. It really talks about two realities occupying the same space, fighting for supremacy. And that's essentially what happens here. But the problem with that in this movie is that there is no rhyme or reason for why all this random stuff happens. So that was the only gripe that I had, because it's one of those things where if they made a reasoning for why these two realities, or actually there's three realities, they only discuss two, and the third one is the one that they don't tell you much about because it's the one where the monsters come in and they're on Earth. That's the one that whatever reality that third one is, that essentially is the only thing that it does to them. And it doesn't
the
to them, it does it to the people on Earth.
the idea is that 10 is the explanation is that the three worlds are this movie, Cloverfield, and 10 Cloverfield Lane. Again, feeling the need to answer all the questions, and it's like,
Depends on how you look at it. I never thought this was connected to 10 Cloverfield Lane, mostly because that one at the very end more or less had me looking like I was watching a fucking alien spaceship and not so much a monster or a creature from an alternate world. So,
so there's actually a lot of references. Mostly comes into Michael's story because that is one of the things in the movie is so Michael, who is the husband of the main
yeah,
character, she was that whole story was not in the original script. So basically, what happened was test audiences complained they wanted to know what was going on Earth. So they rewrote Michael into the story, and all the sections you watch of Michael was after the original movie was written and shot. And that's why if one of the comment like one complaint about the movie is Michael's stories do not really feel connected a lot to what's going on. It's kind of like the ideas to show on like, oh, this is what's going on Earth, which most of the time came into, okay, let's go ahead and let's reference all the stuff. Like, all right, the Cloverfield monster's in the background. You can kind
yeah.
of barely see him, but he's in the background at one point with him. And then later on, he goes into a bunker to reference 10 Cloverfield Lane. So like Michael's story. So that's the connection with 10 Cloverfield Lane was again is like Michael's story was a lot of it. Because yes, if if we took and you took all Michael's story away, yeah, you would almost there's no connection to the other movies. But
No,
because they wrote the Michael story in due to test audiences stuff, that's why it feels a little Frankenstein a little bit because it's just like wait, so okay, he went from doing like if you pay attention only to Michael's story, he's got like five objectives throughout the story. Like, all right, he's trying to do this. Oh wait, now we cut back to him. Oh, now he's doing this now. Oh, we cut back to him again. Oh, now he's over here now.
well,
Like,
really, he's a doctor who's trying to get to helping people who he believes are in danger or needs help, and he gets stopped when the city is more or less in flames, and he comes across this girl who now he feels obligated to help. I have a problem with any of that. I have a problem with his story actually. I think his story actually grounds the main character. Because we don't get the sense that the main character Hamilton, who is Michael's wife, we don't get the sense of her loss for her children until halfway through the movie. So the only connection that we have with her is Michael's story. Without that, you don't really have a connection with her, other than she just feels like she's depressed for some fucking reason, and you don't know why. Because they kind of hide a lot of that until Jensen's character comes in and reveals that Jensen and her are best friends in this alternate second world. You don't get that sense, and that's how Jensen's story actually plays up with Hamilton's story, because by the end of the film, you're trying to Hamilton wants to stay on that Earth, Jensen's Earth, because that's where her kids are still alive. But the whole end, the third act, is her trying to reconcile with the fact that she still has her husband Michael down on her Earth, and that the Earth that Jensen comes from is not her family. I
Yeah.
didn't have a problem with any of that, but the only way you can get all that is if we continue to see Michael. That's the anchor that keeps her character from going to the dark side in the movie. I'm perfectly fine with Michael's thing, and I was perfectly fine with the fact that the film is trying to. And you're probably right. Test audiences probably wanted to see what happened on Earth, but each one of the Cloverfield movies, in design, are self-contained within a singular kind of location. You're staying with the characters in the first movie. You don't stray from those characters because it's a found footage movie. The second movie, you're stuck in the bunker the entire time. And I could see this movie having been you're stuck in the space station the entire time, and in test audiences just wanting to see more of what's happening on Earth, because by the time you get to that third film, you can't sell a self-contained film again. It's one of those things where you have to open up because people are expecting to see more.
Yeah, and the thing is, because again, 10 Cloverfield Lane, both this movie and 10 Cloverfield Lane had the same treatment where they were their own separate movies. The 10 Clover Lane being called The Cellar, and then this being called God Particle, which was again not connected to Cloverfield at all. And then Bad Robots and J.J. Abrams basically reading the scripts and going, you know what? I think I could like again with their original idea of making this like an anthology and stuff, and they were like, okay, we can make some small tweaks. I think this script could in lead to this big universe and stuff. And but the big difference between the two of these is the Cellar with 10 Cloverfield Lane, they didn't really change that much from the like they barely made any adjustments to the scripts versus God Particle and Cloverfield Paradox had major rewrites. It was completely there's a lot of changes they did to this story in between the original unconnected story to the final product connected story, and it's very. And I think that's one of the biggest ones being like Michael's added story and stuff. And I think again, I think that was the problem was I felt it felt like they were like trying to overcompensate, like you said, of like, oh, we need to make this bigger. Again, like before, like when they go with the test audiences and they were like, oh, well, we want this, and then they overcompensate and go, oh, well, okay, well then why don't we try to add more and try to again, it felt like they were like, well, let's go ahead and just start giving people the answers, and people were like, whoa, 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 no, like we don't need the answers to everything. Again, there's so like some a lot like this movie was way more. So to give some examples of that, like one of the big things is Slusho. So Slusho is a it is was part of the campaign marketing campaign for Cloverfield, and is kind of hinted in that movie and stuff. And like Slusho is all there's like a Slusho figurine in the first half of this movie. The characters, one of the characters is named Mark Stampler, who is the relative of Howard Stampler, who is John Goodman's character in 10 Cloverfield Lane. They reused the actress Suzanne Cryer, who was in 10 Cloverfield Lane. They had her make a cameo in this as well. So it was a lot of like they went back and tried unlike the Cellar where again they mostly kept that untouched. This one it was a lot more meddling of okay, let's try to make this be more connected with everything else. And again, it's like and I really and it for me again it ruined a lot of the movie for me because of that. Because with Cloverfield, there's a lot of expectations, at least definitely for me and a lot of moviegoers and stuff. So that's why they were disappointed with this one. Because again, it's like the beauty of the last two movies was everything was vague. You can kind of put things together. And then this is like, no, yeah, nope. See, there's the monster because the particle did this, and then the monsters got over here, and then the ship that went over there woke up the monster, and this is how the aliens got into this world. And it's like,
Well,
yeah.
you don't see any monsters in this till the very. You don't see the Clover monster until the very end of the film. This is more or less a film in which a disaster happens and everyone's trying to avert the disaster with before getting destroyed. That's why it starts off on a very high note and it just keeps going from there on.
Wait,
But
and
it's
it's a
mixed
mhm.
in the aspects of the particle accelerator adjusting reality, the different realities, and that's where you get some of the weird stuff that happens in it. And some of
Which
it's fine, some of it's not. Some of it's just odd.
Yeah, like the beginning premise is a great premise of this idea. Again, it's kind of these. It reminded me of another movie that had a great premise that just did not execute it well. Came out last year. It's called ISS, and it was a similar idea with ISS. It's about these
Mhm.
scientists from different countries, and suddenly they look at Earth, and Earth like blowing up, and they can't get in contact to Earth, and they're all like, we don't know what's going on. We don't know who started the war. What do we do? We don't even know if anyone on Earth is still alive because we've seen all these nukes go off. And it's a great premise that doesn't take advantage. And kind of similar to here with the beginning, it's such a great idea of this particle accelerator goes off. They're transported to Earth, where they transported and Earth's gone. And they're like, what do we do? The problem is again is and then they start weird things start happening uh in the space station, but the problem is that it goes too weird with that, where it's just kind of like anything happens.
That
And the problem is because anything happens, at least as a moviegoer, you're like, okay, it's like, well, if there's no rules, if anything can happen, if someone can randomly just like their arm suddenly can get sentience, or like, oh, okay, like suddenly someone can just freeze to death, or someone suddenly like is bursting with worms. It's like, then I don't know how to feel.
no, that's the one aspect of the film I didn't like is that aspect is that they didn't give that any rules. I mean, what's it? I can't remember his freaking name. Volkov, the first person who starts realizing
Yeah.
his eye is moving independently of the other eye by itself, and then of course he dies because he's got a bunch. His is very weird, and his is the very first one. His eye moves independently of his stuff. He starts hearing things in his head that makes him go build a gun from the replicator machine, and then he bursts out with all these worms that went disappearing for no apparent reason. And of course, later on, they found the gyroscope inside of him, like stuff like that's a lot of shit that happened to one guy, and none of it be explained in a logical manner. Unlike Mundy, who gets his arm stuck in the one little thing, and when his arm acts independently, you can actually think that maybe that's the other arm from the other universe, except for the fact that they explain that the Cloverfield station crash landed on Earth 2 days earlier than where they were got when they showed up there. I was like, well, okay, there's a little bit of a logic issue here.
Yeah,
If
it's
you
like,
if you think too much about it,
yeah,
uh,
it goes for the weirdness. Like again, like it felt like they were like they try to over explain the wrong things instead of explaining, okay, what's going on in the station, what are the rules, what's going on here. They were, again, it felt like they were like, oh, well, let's explain how all these movies are connected now. Then let's explain what's going on in the space station and what's going on with these characters so we can care about like stuff other than, okay, yeah, this now there's a real magnetic field, and like one of the characters gets eaten by the magnet field, and they're hearing ghosts and stuff, and it's like, I guess that's supposed to be the other other space station people, but we can't really tell. And yeah.
well, you can't tell because the other space station was destroyed. So you kind of try to figure out once they mention that the other space station is destroyed and it crash landed on their Earth, which is the whole point of why Jensen wants to take over the Shepard space station and leave it in her world is to get the energy to work there. It's one of those things where But then how does she get on there if the if the Cloverfield space station crashed 2 days earlier? So why is she even there to begin with?
Also, why
Um,
is she the only character that like got transported to the other one?
yeah. So and that's the other. It's a weird concept that once you've seen the movie once, you start rethinking about it. This is one of the things that when rewatching a film doesn't really help.
No.
uh when you watch the film the first time, I saw it literally the day it was released, because I was like you, I was really hyped up about seeing it because first two movies I really liked. I still like this movie because of certain aspects of it. The one I really hate about it is the logic behind what the particle accelerator does between the two realities. The only thing that seems to make fucking sense is the fact that it opens a gateway to another dimension or world or hell, as I think it was Monk who says it, or hell, and the monsters are released. That's the only thing that I think that was a follow through that did fine, except that none of those fucking monsters end up on the space station. And from all intents and purposes, the people on Jensen's Earth don't get affected by anything either. It seems that mostly everything happens on the space station itself, and it should have been confined to the space station.
Yeah, because again, it what it came to is they were, and I guess that is why they ended up picking this script up, is because I think they were like, oh, we could find a way to explain. Again, it became the problem of probably maybe J.J. Abrams did it himself. Was like, oh, I could use this to explain why everything's connected, because I mean, it's just like, yeah, it opened up the portal from a different world, and then that's how like the monsters came through. And it's just kind of like it invalidates a little bit of the other movies to a point of their weirdness, because like the biggest thing with Cloverfield and stuff is how the monster get there, and there's so many fun theories about the monster was always there, but then like a satellite came hit it and awoken it, and that's why it's going on a rampage. Or maybe it's an alien and stuff like that, like came down and stuff. So this movie going, oh yeah, it was a portal opened up and that's how it got through, and you're like, oh, I like the speculation better. I like not knowing, was it always there? Like, did it crash land there? Like, we'll talk like we'll talk more about it in our Cloverfield episode, but it's just like it's just very disappointing. It's just, again, it's a problem that Ridley Scott had with the Aliens movie, where he felt like, all right, let me give you the whole dictionary, like let me go the whole encyclopedia about xenomorphs, and you go, please stop. I don't like knowing all of this. It makes it not as interesting.
Well, I do know that some of the original concepts for the first Cloverfield, before there was a 10 Cloverfield Lane in this one, is that the clover, which is the monster's name, it was more or less supposed to be a newborn, and its rampage is due to the fact that it's a newborn creature. And that's pretty much the whole concept of why the fucking creature does what it does. Um, and then, of
Yep.
course, all the parasites that are on the creature that fall off and then kill other people and shit like that. That was pretty much it. Which is all you need for a found footage film in which people are just running scared throughout the whole movie, trying to run away from the monster that's destroying everything. Um, but I can understand J.J. Abrams and company's ideals to want to expand on that, because by the third movie you can't just keep not explaining things. Um, and they don't explain anything in 10 Cloverfield Lane either. Uh, so it becomes one of
But
those things where it's not just trying to come up with a compelling film, but also give enough little tidbits for the people who are following to actually want to see it, and also be able to sell it as Cloverfield Paradox as opposed to the guard particle, which probably would not have sold anything. Um,
I mean, yeah. The problem was is that like he needed to commit. They actually did say that let me confirm. I think this is the director. No, the screenwriter said this. The screenwriter said one of the biggest reasons this even became a Cloverfield movie was because of the fact that because originally, so the backstory of God Particle was it was under Paramount's. It was called the Insurgent Pictures. It was basically they're attempting to do the micro budget movies. Basically, what now what we're seeing with Jason Blum. So before Paramount was trying to basically do something similar to that before Blum was really going full force with it, with doing these micro budget movies. And so with the God Particle, like they ended up canning that Insurgent Pictures label, and so that's when like the Cellar was out there and God Particle was out there, and then again the Cellar was very easy for them to rewrite, but by the time they got the God Particle, they did not even Bad Robot was not confident on it, which is why they eventually sold the rights to Netflix. And that's why it didn't become a theatrical release because they weren't confident on it. And then again, and then at that point, so they were working in tandem with Netflix. And then the screenwriter was like, yeah, they put it in the Cloverfield world because they thought, well, maybe if we make this a Cloverfield movie, maybe it will sell a little better than maybe it will actually, even though it's not going out in theaters, like maybe there'll be a lot more like eyes on it
Oh, there's
versus
tons more eyes on the movie than expected.
yeah.
They may not have liked it as much as the other two, but you have a lot to live up to. I mean, the 10th Cloverfield Lane had a fucking brilliant performance by John Goodman. You can't beat that. He had one of the best performances in any movie that whole fucking year. As people were saying he was cheated for Best Supporting Actor nomination because he was so good in that one. That was always going to be a hard one to overdo. But this one made up for a lot of young and up and coming talent because the cast was huge for this film. Yeah. And this is not like a small film with no name actors. This is a huge cast with a huge great cast. Some of these I can't even pronounce all the names. So David, I never pronounce his name right. David, see, one day I'm gonna fuck his name up, and I'm gonna meet him one day, and I'm gonna say, sorry, dude, I fucked your name up in my podcast. That dude is freaking brilliant. And even Daniel Bruhl, who we all know is in Marvel world with his Baron Zemo character, but he's done like fucking tons of shit outside of Marvel. I hope people see the other great shit Daniel Bruhl has done. I mean, Crystal Dodd. I loved Crystal Dodd. And he's one of my favorite characters in this movie, despite the fact he loses his arm and gets sucked in by a magnet thing that warps his. That didn't make any fucking sense. And when I rewatched it the fourth time for the podcast, it still doesn't make any fucking sense.
No, it's just, again, like a lot of the deaths are like deaths for deaths. Like it just, yeah, it's just like that. That was another disappointment was because of how like, oh, you got all of these names and stuff. And then it's like, you don't really use them well. A lot of the writing for the characters become very like one note, other than Hamilton's character. She gets the most out of it, but everyone else unfortunately does eventually become like kind of one note.
Yeah, some of them are, but you do see some of the relationships between them, especially between Daniel Bruhl's Schmidt and Ziyi Zhang's Tam. They have some type of relationship. And the thing is, that makes a very, very interesting relationship because she's Chinese and he's German. And of course, Volkov, who's the Russian, seems to think that there's something going on between the countries and stuff like that. So having these different types of actors here and characters kind of builds in that type of atmosphere.
Well, the reason that ended up happening was because the actress Zia cannot speak English, so they had to write that into the story with her having that friendship and stuff because the actress could not speak English, so that was their workaround.
She speaks a little English, but she's not as vocal as Jackie Chan is.
Yeah, so they were not confident on that, so that's why they gave a story explanation of why she has that.
That makes great sense though, because you have all the other characters who speak in Chinese while she's speaking Chinese, and that adds a little bit more color to the entire film, so it doesn't seem so fucking one note. You're essentially got a futuristic space station with a bunch of different people who speak multiple different languages and from different cultures. I actually love that about the film. I mean, yeah. I don't fault any of like I said, I don't fault any of what actually happens. I fault the logic behind the film. I think if they had done something closer to what Dan it was Dan Boyle who just did 28 Weeks Later. Dan, what's his first name? Boyle, the director of that. I want
David
to say
Boyle.
I don't want to say Daniel Boyle because I don't think it's Daniel Boyle. But Boyle, I'll say Boyle. When he did with his movie Sunshine, where he
Mm.
did a very similar thing with a multi cultural cast and them speaking different languages, I thought was brilliant. I thought that gave the whole sense of the movie an entire ambiance of it being a world problem. And this is in this movie a world problem that they're all working together to solve. And I like that aspect of it. I like the fact that some of them don't work well with others and some of them do. Volkov is like the person who's been keeping the entire station up and running clean and crystal clear, except for one spot. And he's very proud of that. And that's how they've been up there for 2 years, but not so successful until now. I like that type of atmosphere. I like that camaraderie and or animosity towards the character because it makes it seem much more realistic than if everyone just works together. Um, I think I like the fact that it's more or less after the particle accelerator overloads the first time, and they're trying to figure the fuck out what's going on, because they don't have the gyroscope to tell them. That all for me is a disaster movie, and the disaster movie aspects are really well done in the movie. I think, and it's not shoehorning because this is all part of the original script. But having the logic of not knowing what the particle accelerator has done from one point to the next is weird because with Moody's arm gets stuck once, but that's not what happens. The whole damn thing moves in that whole wall. I'm like, so what's causing it to fucking move? It's so weird. And then
Yeah, it's just it doesn't it's not consistent because it
it's
goes
not
from
consistent.
yeah, it's just each character has a weird thing going on with them, but not every character gets a weird thing going on. It's just like again, it gets to a thing where it's like, all right, we need to start killing off characters. We need to
Yes.
start doing we need to start killing off characters. Let's start doing just weird stuff just to explain it. And it's like, but why? Well, don't worry about why. We just need to do some fun, cool things so we can, so that way we can have some like, so the audience doesn't get bored. And it's like,
Yeah. I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. The only person of the entire crew who I think actually has a death that's worth mentioning is Keel. When he sacrifices his life to the untether the part that's going to destroy the entire rig. I thought that was the only death that made much sense for the disaster story that's being told. I think most of the other, like Z Zhang's, I thought was horrible. I thought that was the first time I watched the movie, and I still think it was a stupid idea that water condensation has gotten to the point where it will flood the entire airlock, and then for some reason the outer door of the airlock, which just burst on its own and killing her. I thought that was dumb when I first saw it, and I saw it was dumb again when I rewatched it again for the fourth or fifth time. I was like, this is still a stupid death.
yeah, it's just, it becomes, what happens was it becomes very slocky of like it started taking stuff from different sci-fi stuff from there. It didn't try to be original. It tried to, okay, we need to just kill off characters just so we can just so something interesting's happening. And then again, it's like, and so it doesn't, it's just not, it doesn't feel connected. And like that's even, and again it kind of goes again with like Michael's stuff of like, I don't mind understanding the purpose of Michael's stuff, but again it becomes a point where it's like, okay, we need to show on what's going on Earth, which becomes, oh, we need to start checking off the boxes of, okay, let's make references to the other movies, so that so that way we can like quotation do a bow on the whole series. And it's like, I there could have been a way for them to do it right. I don't think they did it right, and I don't know who dropped the ball on that one, but it definitely like felt, again, there's a lot of ball dropping on like execution of the story, and it felt very much like, I don't know fully how the original script looked like. I just know pieces of it. Like again, Michael's story was not in there, and obviously the stuff with including Cloverfield was not in there. but I think a lot of script tampering probably worsened the story overall because of it.
Well, I think overall in all the movies, the ideal for Clover or Cloverfield is unexplained. I mean, they call they call it in the first movie. What do they call it? The Cloverfield incident or the Cloverfield
Yeah,
report at the very end, and then of course the monster is always referred to as Clover.
yeah,
But then if that makes any sense to anyone, it's only the government because in Jensen's reality, it's called the Cloverfield station. The It's either Clover Station or Cloverfield Station. I've forgotten now.
yeah.
Uh,
And
and
then
whereas in the Hamilton's reality, it's the Shepherd Station. And it's like, why did they have two different names? It doesn't make any sense.
And
Um,
then Cloverfield Lane, 10 Cloverfield Lane, it's literally the name of the street that the story goes on. It's like, okay, yeah, that's fine and stuff. It's just kind of like, well, it doesn't make sense because you have the incident, the whole like in the pair like the whole conspiracy theory of all these universes colliding, literally called the Cloverfield paradox. And then later, again, like you said, then they named the ship the Cloverfield, and it's like, okay, you are hammering too hard on the fact that this is Cloverfield. It's like, we get it. We
I
get it that this is a Cloverfield movie. Again, that's what it feels like to me, that they felt it too much connection. They felt too much like, okay, we really got to make sure people understand that this is like, that's why, like, even though it's a cool shot, the last shot of the story of the adult Clover monster popping out in the clouds was visually like, okay, like it's a cool sight, but for a mechanism is so lazy because it's like, it's to make sure that people know, oh yeah, see, it's all connected. If you weren't sure because we haven't shown you the monster yet, yes, this is connected. Here's the monster from the first movie.
Well, I think that's just more of them doing the shock ending so that you're Michael saying that there's monsters on this earth, but you don't actually see them, and that's their money shot for the end. That's how I see that. I don't think they were trying to hammer in the fact that they could have, in reality, they could have put any fucking monster there because just because the monster from the original Cloverfield is one monster in 10 Cloverfield Lane that looks like a goddamn spaceship, they could have literally put anything in there.
Well, but that's the difference. If they did a different monster, that would have been interesting because this whole time, that actually would have been interesting because the whole time you as an audience is thinking like, oh, is this the monster from the first movie? Is the monster from the second? Is it the aliens from the second? So if the money shot was a different monster, that actually would have been a good twist because you think it's going to be one of these monsters we know, but it's another monster. But it being the Clover monster is the safe answer because, again, it's like people want to see,
Yes, people
everyone
want to
like
see that.
Cloverfield.
Yeah, people want to see the monster, but you also got to remember there's more people. There's a hell of a lot more people who hated the first Cloverfield than hate the second one. Most of the people who can't stand found footage and shaky cam hate Cloverfield, um, and
Yeah.
it's not nearly as well received as 10 Cloverfield Lane was well received. I think for people who love the franchise, they kind of see the first two movies as really great movies, but to be honest with you, with people who hated the first one because it's shaky cam the whole time and they hate found footage films, there's the second movie and then there's this movie. Because this one does away with everything that people hated about the first movie.
Which, I mean, that's their that's
No,
their
no,
problem.
you got to remember that
I
of the
know.
fact this was one of the most successful. Cloverfield was one of the most successful found footage movies of its time, but it's also the one that gets criticized the most because of the shaky cam, and people hate that. I love found footage movies. I put Cloverfield up there as one of my top 10 all time favorites. Just like our other guest judge Jim Adams, he loves this movie just as much as I do. Uh, but there is more people out there who hate that first movie because they just cannot get past the shaky cam and they can't see what's going on, and it's a found footage movie. I think the great thing about Cloverfield Paradox is it tried to do away with the genre conventions of both the previous two movies and try and make a sci-fi movie.
Yeah.
Did it work? Nah, I think in some aspects it did, but mostly it didn't because for people like you and me who watched all three and we enjoy the first two, the logic issues come into play the most for us with the third movie. I mostly see it as a disaster movie that just happens to be within the Cloverfield world. That's how I take it. And my first time watching it, that's exactly how I felt when I first watched it. It was a disaster movie, and I've seen a billion disaster movies, and this follows the same trope that they all do. And I was not disappointed because that's exactly what it does. I was more concerned about the logic issues because if they had made a reason for why things actually happened on the space station, Shepard, I would have gone with the whole movie and had no problems because I love the cast of this movie. But logic issues can destroy a movie for anybody. Logic issues can, like most people, and that will hamper people from rewatching a movie more than once. If they watch it once and they really hated the fucking logic of the movie, they won't ever give it a second chance, ever. And that's a problem with this movie. It's a logic issue. You don't have logic issues for the first two movies. You don't. Cloverfield is a very simple film. Disaster. Monster shows up. People with a camera are trying to flee to a safe area. Pretty fucking simple.
Yeah.
There's no logic issues with that. The second one, stuck in a bunker. You don't know what to believe and what to believe. It is a psychological thriller that where the human monster is the biggest monster of all. Dude, that fucking great. You don't even give a shit what's going on outside of the bunker. But you're right in that by showing Michael's story, they opened a can of worms that they weren't ready to deal with in terms of trying to make it all fit.
Yeah, because the difference too between the three movies is the first two movies, like you said, there was no there wasn't any logic, like you weren't questioning things because the first two movies, there's a lot of mystery. Again, Cloverfield, there's so much mystery going on the entire time about what is the monster, how to get here, what's going on. They breadcrumbing a lot. Again, it had great marketing going into it. I mean, the biggest thing about literally the movie was everyone's like, what does the monster look like? You don't get a full picture of the monster until the climax, which is especially, I mean, even back then in 2008, that was not commonly done. Like again, I mean, a lot of what that movie did was fantastic, but the whole time with Cloverfield, you're like, what does this monster even look like? There's so much mystery with it. With 10 Cloverfield Lane, it continues that because you are the entire time going, is John Goodman's character correct? Was there an alien invasion? What's going on? Is he telling the truth? Is he not telling the truth? And you're going back and forth with the mystery with it. The problem with 10 Cloverfield with Cloverfield Paradox is it's you have mysteries, but not in the good way. Because the mystery is, okay, what the heck is going on? Why is this happening? But it's like with those movies, those add to the mystery of it. It adds to the mystery of Cloverfield of we don't know what this monster looks like, what's going on, like what's all the deal with it, and you're finding out, and it adds to the tension to it. With 10 Cloverfield Lane, it adds to the tension for the characters of are they in danger or are they not. But for Cloverfield Paradox, you don't know if the characters are in danger because you don't know what's going on. Just suddenly, randomly, an arm will come off. Suddenly, a room will be filled with water. Like suddenly, someone's going to burst into worms. But there's too much mystery on the wrong ends of it. You need to know something if they're going to be killing the character off. Why these characters are getting killed off, which they don't answer. And even on the ground and stuff, it's like, you don't know what's going on with Michael and stuff. And that's probably like the best version of like, you don't know what's going on. But like everything on the space station, like there's the mysteries in the wrong way. Like, you're like, wait, why is this happening? Why is that happening? But it's more relevant to the story, and you need those answers, and you never really get those answers.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I don't always think that like I said, I don't think that this movie deals with a mystery aspect as much as you think in reality, because At first, the only mystery really is what happened to the gyroscope. Um, and they can't find it, but that's not something they search out for at any particular moment. They know it's gone, but they don't think about searching it out and what happened to it. It just shows back up, and the arm tells them where it is, and then that's when they find it. Um, I think the greatest mystery is the Jensen character, and figuring out that they switched realities, but that none of the characters make that a mystery. Like
No.
it literally is, like I said, this is why I took it as a disaster movie. Their space station's crumbling around them, and they are trying to repair it and get and find their way back to Earth, which they can't find until they get the gyroscope.
No.
But the gyroscope isn't like no one's looking for it. That's what like I think if it had a mystery, an actual mystery element to it, I think it would have been much more successful and it would have played out better. I
Yeah.
think that is definitely what's missing, because they just seem to be people going from one disaster to the next. Um,
Yeah, and in unlike other disaster movies, there's a thread line, right?
yeah,
You watch the day after tomorrow, okay, this is because of
well, it's a
global
there's a
warming.
ticking time clock. They
Yeah.
don't have a ticking time clock until towards the end, where when they have when they have the accident and they have to get rid of the section of the ship before the whole ship disintegrates on itself. I think that's the only point where there's an actual ticking time clock where they have to get something done right then and there. Uh, but for like the first half, there's not like a sense of a ticking time clock. For like a disaster movie has a ticking time clock, and once it starts, it never stops. I can't remember you. I don't think you were on a conversation that we had about the movie Underwater. Underwater is a perfect example of a ticking time clock disaster movie. The whole station blows up. These people need to find another way to get back to the surface, and the monsters are getting in the way of them getting to where they can get back to the surface.
Yeah.
If this film had done, if it had followed like it like, but I know the film was trying to be like that, without trying to be like that. Like you're trying to have something that's in the way of the disaster aspects, and but the way they explain it is that anything just happened because these two worlds, these two realities are colliding with each other. Well, that's not
I
nearly as fun to watch as say a monster who's picking them off one by one.
I think a way they could have done this a little better is kind of how the I think you said underwater. Like underwater is a good way they could have done this story and stuff a lot better. But because at least underwater, there's at least some sense of like understanding of like what is going on a little bit versus this where it's just like, yeah, you like again, like even if they didn't, I think having a creature there would have either having a creature there would have helped better, or again some list of rules of like why, oh, because the universes are colliding, we may see like this happen or like that happen, like character like that would make more sense. Instead, yeah, like again, you have the moment with Volkov with his eyeball like moving on its own, and like again, Mundy with his arm. That could have been a whole thing about like, oh yeah, they were right, like we've seen like Rick and Morty or like other like sci-fis of like the concept of like what if two people are in the same place, what could
Yeah.
happen? You could play with that. Like maybe they both those characters, their alternate selves were there too, and they're basically, I mean, you could have made a thing type of situation where like maybe two versions melded each other and they become this weird monstrosity because of
Mhm.
that. Or again, there could have been a lot more cooler ideas, and it just and there wasn't. There's no rhyme or reason for it. And again, in disaster movies, there's at least, you know, there's some rhyme and reason. Like there's a like
Well,
again, you watch a day after tomorrow, everything that happens in day after tomorrow, you don't question. What they kind of did here was kind of like I gotta find the movie about the moonfall. It's
Moonfall.
like they were going off the logic of moonfall of like weird stuff's just gonna happen because we need weird stuff to happen.
No, that's exactly how I felt. I think that if this movie had say and I hate to reference this movie, because I hate to reference other movies when I comment on movies like this, that this is what they should have done type of thing in this movie. But if they had done something like, if you saw the movie Life with Ryan Reynolds,
Yes.
where the scientists are on the space station and they take in a life form, and the life form goes and starts killing them off one by one. If they had brought like a smaller version or a alternate version of a monster from this other universe, that as they're trying to repair their ship to get back to where it's supposed to be, that is what's plaguing them, instead of just having random shit happen. I think it would have been a better connective tissue than having
Yeah.
just random stuff happen, because the random stuff happening to them does not in any way link back to what Cloverfield in our minds actually should be.
And again, like you said, it doesn't even relate to what's going on Michael's story. That's why they feel disconnected. Of like, you don't like what's going on in the spaceship, completely irrelevant to Earth. So that's why it feels like, that's why for me watching it, it was just so disconnected, because it's like none of the action, like all again, other than it just being a tether for Hamilton's character, nothing else is connected to each other. They are essentially two different movies to a point.
Well, I
They're
do.
two different disaster movies to each other. I should reference.
Exactly. Two different disaster. No, that's a great play of putting it. Two different disaster movies, which is actually quite funny to think about it like that, because like Hamilton is the, you're right, is literally the only character who's giving enough information that the audience can actually kind of empathize with and sympathize with. Most of the other characters, they can't. There's a couple of great little moments between Keel and Hamilton, but to be honest with you, Monk, who I love, that actor, Ortiz, he's kind of wasted in this movie. He's a character actor who I love everything. Like, same with Crystal Dodd. I love Crystal Dodd. He gets all the funny bits in this movie. Like, they literally gave him every funny line that there possibly could be in this movie. They come from him. And as much as I love Ziyi Zhang, in all her Chinese movies, she's fucking brilliant. But I can see her wanting to branch out and do some higher budget, big budget U.S. productions, and they finagled her into doing this film. And for the life of me, I can't think if she's other. I don't think she's done another English language movie. I think everything else she has done is all Chinese language. But she's like a revered actress in China. Yeah, she's fucking brilliant and everything.
Oh, she did. She was in King of Monsters.
Is she in there?
Yeah, she did King of Monsters right after. Also, she's in. Oh, well, actually, that's in the other. Yeah, she's in King of Monsters.
Yeah, I have to look that up. I don't remember her being in that. But I've only seen that movie once too. So,
She's one of the doctors.
oh, one of the doctors. Another thankless role then. That's why I don't remember her in there. But it's one of those movies where Daniel Bruhl gets probably the most in terms of screen time among all the other characters. And Elizabeth Debicki as Jensen. But I mean, her story really just links in with Hamilton's story. Whereas Daniel Bruhl, who's the only other survivor, at the end, he gets a lot of great stuff because he's such a great actor. I mean, he does a lot with so little, and that's the other great thing. They all the actors do a lot with so little, so little.
Yeah.
But this is always a hard thing to do when you're critiquing the third film in a franchise, because by the third film, and you can check off each of the little boxes, by the third film in most franchises, they're trying to do something different that's from all the other films. They over explain everything because they think that people won't come see a third film in a franchise if everything's not explained to them. So you watch the third film in franchises, they tend to go back and reiterate so much shit that's already in the other movies before it. And sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. Or they do a fucking prequel and then they over explain everything by doing a prequel as the third movie in the franchise. It's an odd thing. It happens in most all franchises. I don't know why it does that. I do not. I've looked into it. and I've never understood it. And studios taking scripts and augmenting them to fit other scripts is nothing new. It happens all the time. It's exactly what happened to Die Hard with a Vengeance. And I think Die Hard 4, I think were two completely different movies before they converted them to Die Hard movies. Um, but it happens all the time. That's nothing new. That will keep happening because what happens is when you sell a film on spec, in theory, you sell a film on spec, they may like your writing, they might like your concept, but they may have a better way to market it and change it and make more money off of it by implementing it into an already existing IP. That happens all the time. That's nothing new at all. And by the third movie in the franchise, they are saying, or actually in the case of Cloverfield, they did it with the second movie too, 10 Cloverfield Lane. The third movie in the franchise is like, well, we already have this great script that we like. We like the writer, but we want to make it so more people see it. So we're gonna make it into a Cloverfield movie.
It very much felt like what they did, because again, like the problem was is this feels like it's at the time, like again, the concept of doing like an anthology with the Cloverfield stuff was such a smart idea originally by J.J. Abrams, and it felt like, and I'm wondering this if this had a lot of influence with Netflix too. Once Netflix bought the rights for this, is I'm wondering, it felt like they were overcompensating. There's a lot of overcompensation, I feel like, with this movie, and I think like they felt they couldn't do this, like you said, they couldn't do the same idea of keeping it vague. Is this connected? Is it not connected? Who knows? Let's maybe put a little like sprinkles in there, but let's not full out say. I felt like they were too afraid to do it too afraid to do it this time. And I don't know if it was J.J. Abrams himself or was Netflix or someone in between felt, okay, we can't do the same thing we did with 10 Cloverfield Lane. We gotta put more Cloverfield like references and more obvious hint there. This is like we're going to explain more in this third movie
Yeah, I would
because
that would be interesting to look up. Only because what typically happens, or in theory, what typically used to happen, because Netflix has changed their acquisitions things so much, is they used to give their talent, like filmmakers, a lot more leeway with whatever they decide to bring to the table. And I wouldn't be surprised if God Particle at some point before it made its way to Netflix was already being tweaked. And because it has J.J. Abrams' name on it, Netflix just bought it up, regardless of what the movie started off as or how it would end. I kind of see, I used to see Netflix as, okay, you got all these people attached to this project already, and it's only going to cost me this much. Here you go. Um, they used to be a lot more hands off. I will not say they're like that now, but they used to be a lot more hands off with a lot of product like that. And the only way you can know that is if they have multiple deals with Netflix, and that's what I was looking up now to see if J.J. Abrams has any other Netflix projects, and I don't see any. Uh,
yeah, I'm wondering because like the thing is with all of this too was this definitely, never say never. I do feel like this did kill off the Cloverfield brand a little bit because we because I'm not sure if you ever heard about this, but the movie Overlord that came out
yeah,
in 2018, that was heavily rumored to be the next Cloverfield movie, and then never, and then that eventually got pulled. And it never was like referenced at all to be a Cloverfield movie. And I think
I
a
don't
lot
see
of
how
spec
that would. Yeah, go
a
ahead.
lot of speculation was that it was pulled because of how bad Paradox was received and stuff. Because like the idea, because again, the idea of it being like an anthology and stuff, Overlord could have, that could have been, you could have added to the anthology of
World War
Cloverfield and stuff.
II. I don't think that would have fit at all.
I mean,
Plus, I
well, you
doubt
gotta
that they.
remember this was when you had like the monsters. It was World War II's monsters.
Well, I doubt that. I'm gonna doubt that that was. They both came out the same year, dude. Yeah, they wouldn't even. They probably wouldn't even known how the other was going to do.
Mm.
But especially considering the average lifetime of a movie is about 3 to 5 years from script to screen. Um, but it does beg the difference since there's no more J.J. Abrams Netflix movies. If this was simply an acquisition of a movie that was already done, which Netflix has done plenty of, or if it was a film that they came in to give finishing funds or finished production or whatever it was.
They
Uh,
did Netflix did throw in some money for this because basically it was by the time it became a Cloverfield movie was around the time because this movie was getting bounced around a lot. It basically was like late it was early because early 2018 that the movie was originally going to come out in 2016. Then it became 2017, and then it went to 2018 around the time, and then early 2018 is when Netflix acquired the rights to it. And then originally the budget was like only 5 million, and then they did the test audience stuff, and then all that bloated it up to now being like 40 to 50 million was the ending budget. 45 million was the ending budget, but it was
so,
way lower budget beforehand.
so the interesting thing about this movie is that Netflix did not release it on DVD and Blu-ray. Paramount Pictures did, so they did not sell all the rights to Netflix.
Yeah,
That's weird.
it was a weird collaboration basically. It's like kind of
Yeah. Well, the other thing could be because Netflix, and I don't know, because Netflix has released some stuff to Blu-ray and DVD, but that's not their bread and butter. They don't make any money off that, so they don't do that except for on specific things. Um, but that is something to be aware of because, like I said, it would be interesting to know exactly who had input where when for this movie, because like I said, with Netflix, they used to do lots of just acquisitions. But the strange thing is, there's no other deals on the table with J.J. Abrams and Netflix that I'm aware of here. Which
yeah.
is odd because Netflix has deals with like virtually everybody. They have deals with everybody. So you think that they have a deal with J.J. Abrams, who tends to do some great shit.
Oh yeah, I mean, and this was early on too with Netflix where they were like,
2018 ain't early on, dude.
yeah, that was back when Netflix was like trying to just do anything that they could. So like that's why like around the same time they got Netflix got Annihilation from Paramount too of like, hey, we want to like we it was
Well,
released in America, but in no a number of countries it didn't have a theatrical release. It came on Netflix instead because around that time Netflix was just trying to get whatever they can to get eyes onto the platform.
well, that's different though. That's usually regardless in streaming rights. Netflix buys streaming rights from shit ton of other companies. That's different than producing your own movies.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. Huh, interesting. But we've gotten off topic with this one. Because which I was expecting because one, this is the third part in a trilogy, and we can always reference the other ones when we're talking about the third part in the trilogy, which is why it's so important to talk about these movies. This one is so far different from the other two that it made for a very interesting conversation. But do you have any additional things to add? Because this is an odd one in which we were referencing so much of the film without actually telling people the film, because essentially it's a bunch of people in a space station trying to test out a new energy
It's
machine that
it,
goes haywire.
it's one of those movies that if we started telling the viewers the what's going on, they'll kind of be confused anyway because it's it's very confusing at times.
I don't
So
think
I
the
mean,
film is confusing at all. I just think the logic behind it is confusing.
yeah, that's what I mean, the logic behind it. So we start explaining, going more in details with some of that stuff, it'll be like I feel like I need a lot of context. It's like I can give you half context. Um, but yeah, no, I'm very interested. I do feel personally, and you never say never. And of course, J.J. Abrams is keeping tight lip about, if the if the series is dead or not, and if they do another Cloverfield, are they going to continue an anthology or is it going to be a direct sequel? They've said both at this point. So uh, I will give again the movie a lot of credit of the marketing of releasing it during Super Bowl, announcing it during the Super Bowl was definitely a very ballsy move that definitely I think helped get a lot more eyes on it. I think if they didn't do that, I think even less people would have saw it. But because of that, everyone was like, "Oh." Um, it was definitely a ballsy move, and I will give them at least credit on that that was a very smart marketing idea. But I personally do not think that the I don't know. I would be surprised if we ever see another Cloverfield. I think the series kind of has died with Paradox, but I could be
Nothing.
I
No
could
franchise ever dies, dude. You should know that by watching movies now with reboots, remakes, legacy sequels, dude. You should know
That's
that
true.
no
I will wait
franchise.
for the Cloverfield reboot excitingly in 15, 20 years.
Oh, they won't do a reboot. They'll do a legacy, and they'll bring back like Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character from 10 Cloverfield Lane, in a new
There you
movie.
go.
It will be a legacy sequel. They will not. Yeah, they won't. They won't do a remake. There is absolutely no reason to do a remake of Cloverfield. It will not make money. No one's gonna go see it. No one's gonna go see it. They
It made a lot of money when it came out, but
That's because found footage was still raw back then. You ain't got no audience for a found footage film in this day and age anymore. You have a small, dedicated audience to that subgenre of horror. And it ain't coming back anytime soon because of the aesthetics.
yeah. But either way, I am very but yeah, Cloverfield Paradox is just my feelings have not changed on it. So it's definitely a if you are a fan of Cloverfield, go in with extremely low expectations with this movie and try to erase it from your head canon uh when you're watching it. But I think if you take out the Cloverfield stuff, any references to the other ones, I think the movie's not awful. I don't think it's bad. I think it's fine for where it is on streaming. I definitely was definitely a smart idea to not let it go theatrically because it definitely would have not done good theatrically. And the story overall is not that strong for a theatrical release.
It would have it would have been the same as any other horror theatrical film. I guarantee you it would have made money on its first weekend, and of course, reviews would have probably brought it down like most horror films. It would have done the same trajectory as most any other horror film. Would it have made back its $45 million budget? If you count the world, probably. I guarantee you probably did. But if you want to see it make a profit like 10 Cloverfield Lane or Cloverfield, it would have been like all three part threes in franchises. A diminishing returns. It's rare when the third part in any franchise makes a whole shit ton of money. You can't even make money for Jurassic World 3 Dominion. That made less than the previous two. It's just the law of returns. By the third movie, people are already tired, so you have to give them something else. Um, I do think that this film, if you are a fan of the first two, this one has a lot to be desired. I will say this because we did not mention it, but the score for this is fucking amazing by Bear McCreary. Um, I mean, the score is hands down the best thing about this movie. It's fucking phenomenal. I mean, from one moment, and this guy does everything that McCreary does is fucking awesome. That does not diminish this film at all. It actually enhances this film. Um, Other than that, I think you're right in that you have to go in with low expectations. Even with the amazing cast on hand. And that is the reason why I guarantee you, so many people decided to watch it who have not seen the Cloverfield movies. If they have watched it, it's probably because of the cast. Um, because the cast is simply amazing. But we discussed it over and over again about this movie. The lack of logic, it just kind of down. It doesn't make it a cohesive movie. Um, It's unfortunate. It happens all the time. If we ever do a podcast on Die Hard with a Vengeance, I'll tell you that's one of my least favorite of all of them because I fucking hate that movie. It doesn't matter if Samuel L. Jackson is in it and he steals every scene he's in it. That still movie fucking sucks to me. Um, but I don't want to look down upon movies that take other scripts and shoehorn them within an existing franchise or IP. The real sad thing is that most of those films would have never gotten made otherwise. They would have been sitting on a slush pile somewhere, and they would still be there because Hollywood studios are so afraid to take chances on original ideals. I think 10 Cloverfield Lane is one that actually ended up being better, and will be far remembered more because it is part of the Cloverfield franchise than if it hadn't been. If it was called The Cellar, no one would remember that fucking movie, dude. No one. It's called 10 Cloverfield Lane, and people will remember it, and most people will say it is hands down the best movie in the franchise, and John Goodman is absolutely flawless in this movie, and he's freaking brilliant, and he was cheated for his Academy Award! But with that, you have any other final thoughts before we get to grading the movie?
Nope. Yep. I've given all my opinions.
All right. So for everyone listening to the show, what we like to do is we like to rate the movies from 1 to 5 stars, depending on our love of this movie. 1 star being poor, 5 stars being amazing. Where on the spectrum, Philip, do you put the Cloverfield Paradox?
I will. It's a 2. It's a 2 for me.
How is it you give it a 2 and you hate the movie? That is crazy to me.
Because I still appreciate the 2 out of 5. The thing is, I'm not going to give something a 1 because my thing is, I do appreciate the things with some of the story on the ship and stuff. I do appreciate that as it is. Actually, I'm probably a 1.5 now that I'm talking more out. But I rarely give things a 1. A 1, it has to be like there has been nothing good about it.
No,
so I'll give it a
0 stars, or a half star would be nothing good about
it. Yeah, like to me, it's I don't know. I'm not gonna give anything a 1 unless it is just like Morbius is a 1.
I don't think Morbius is a 1.
Actually, Morbius might not be a 1. Madam Web might be a 1.
I don't think that's a 1 either.
You have not seen Madam Web.
Yeah, I have. I've seen them both. I would give Birdemic a half star just for attempting to make a movie. That's what I would do. That would be the lowest I would give, would be a half star. I don't give any movie a 0 because then that would mean that they didn't even attempt to make a movie. If you attempt to make a movie, you at least get a half star.
If my thing is a half star is I walked out of the movie, or I wanted to. If I'm giving something a half star, that means I have walked out of the movie. I did not finish it because it was that bad.
Don't, and everyone out there, I've given plenty of movies 1 stars. I have given lots of movies 1 stars, actually. Half stars is very, very rare, but for this movie, I would give it 3. Me and him differ on our love of this movie because I can put this movie in and enjoy watching it. This is like a guilty pleasure movie. I look at this movie like Supernova. I know there's a shit ton of people out there who hate the movie fucking Supernova. It is a dumb movie, period. But it's so much fun for me to watch and throw in there, and I can just throw in there, and I know all the stupidity that's going to happen. Cloverfield Paradox is like that for me. It's a movie that I know it's stupid and the logic doesn't make any fucking sense, but I love the cast. I love the music. I have the score for the music for this movie because the score is amazing. And this is not one of those films where I just hate the movie because it's a bad movie. The movie just has bad ideals in terms of logic. So I can throw it in and watch it and be completely taken away with the movie because I don't give a shit about it. It's not like sitting down and watching 10 Cloverfield Lane. When I sit down and watch 10 Cloverfield Lane, I'm watching a great movie. I'm watching some great performances. I'm sitting there and I'm engrossed the entire time. That's not a guilty pleasure movie. That's watching a great fucking movie. Cloverfield Paradox, guilty pleasure movie. You, Philip, this is not a guilty pleasure at all. It's not a pleasure at all.
No, No, also if talk about a movie that's 0 stars, I can give you a 0 star movie. Anything Freeberg and Seltzer did. So Meet the Spartans, disaster movie, those I will give a 0 star to. But no, this movie, I'm like, I can appreciate, again, I can appreciate the acting. I can appreciate at least some of the ideas behind it and stuff. And that's why I'm lenient with 1.5 and stuff. I can appreciate the filmmaking and stuff enough to give it a score like that.
Thank you, Philip, joining us on this conversation for the Cloverfield Paradox. For everyone out there listening to the show, this is why we do the show. Me and my guests always have differing opinions on certain films, and we love to discuss movies like the Cloverfield Paradox, which has a very diverse audience. There are plenty of people out there who hate the movie, completely hate the movie, and those who might enjoy it. I actually have not met anyone other than myself who actually enjoys this movie as guilty pleasure, but that's just me. I take my guilty pleasures when I can find them, and I love space movies, so I give space movies always get a little bit one up on me because I can just throw those in and just watch people do stupid shit in space. That should not give the movie a pass, but that's why I say it's a guilty pleasure. If you want me to ask their technical and all the other shit, it'd probably be close to 2 stars. Because performance wise is great, visual effects are great, the makeup effects is great. A lot of the editing, cinematography is great. It's just logic issues, dude. Logic issues. So with that, I want to thank you all for listening to Conversations in Horror. I hope you've enjoyed the episode on Cloverfield Paradox. I hope you check out all the previous episodes on Cloverfield and 10 Cloverfield Lane as we celebrate Franchise Month. Make sure to check out the show on your favorite podcast apps, Spotify and YouTube, and any of our other great websites out there that have the show on. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, do that thing you do with your favorite podcast. And also, make sure to check out our sister podcast, Conversations in 4Color, which delves deep into comic books, manga, and graphic novels. That is our Patreon supported only podcast, so you have to be a subscriber or a member in order to listen to that podcast. So I definitely hope that you will take a chance on us, take a chance on our Patreon, and listen to that podcast as well. And from all of us here at Something Wicked Entertainment, we want to wish you a great day, and make sure to check out some of the other franchise films that we've done this month. Have a good day. Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production, written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers, executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.